Okay. Fantastic. I guess a couple of investors are already here. So, Pravash will probably kick off this session of DealRoom conversations today. And then, I believe that other investors can just join in whenever they're ready. Okay. So starting with the DealRoom conversations, thank you so much to all the investors who are here today. And to the investors that don't know Crowd Invest, I will just give you a little gist of it. Crowd Invest is a cross-border startup investment platform. We help investors invest in startups across borders. And this is DealRoom Conversations by Crowd Invest, where we speak about various topics that are of investors' interest. So we deep dive into different subjects, different geographies, deep dive into different sort of businesses, and try to explore these different aspects of investment. And today we have Pravash with us, who is an expert in defense tech. And so welcome, Pravash. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And speaking about DealRoom conversations, we keep it completely, how do I say it, conversational, probably. No specific strict rules of questions or anything here. We'll just have a conversation regarding this aspect, which is quite interesting. And so why don't we start with you, probably introducing yourself, and then we take it on from there.
So, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical glitch. Thank you for the opportunity, talking to every investors that we have right now on the panel, as well as all the participants, defense enthusiasts. So, just to introduce myself, I am Pravash Dey. I am an entrepreneur and investor in defense DefTech space. I started my career in 2003-4 when I actually did my master's from India and then moved to UK for my higher studies. I did an MBA from Brunel University. In between, I was working with Marks and Spencer, and then after I joined Google Enterprise. So working in the tech space, particularly looking at various entrepreneurship programs in the UK, be part of the startup Britain or enterprise UK. So the whole idea was pretty much connecting with entrepreneurs, investors, innovators from different parts of the world, bring them to the UK so that the startup ecosystem can be energized and we can create obviously more domestic products for the UK solutions. But as you know, the market has limitations, and once you start, then there is a maturity level when you can also try to reach out to countries like US, India, other parts of the world. So that is where we actually expanded to India, UAE, and US. The project was called Silicon Valley Comes to the UK. So where we went to different parts of India and are very much scouting entrepreneurs, bringing them to the UK under the Silicon Valley project, and there was a combination of Silicon Valley, Silicon Roundabout, and Silicon Corridors of India. So the idea was to connect with one or two founders from the UK and one or two founders, co-founders team from India, so that they whatever they're working on in their ideas, so the tech support can be given at the same time. An extended team can be also built in India. So that is how I basically expanded to India, and then did get an introduction to the Gift City, which was the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's project. So we started India's first technology business incubator in the tech space, and then obviously supporting the local domestic entrepreneurs here, taking them to the UK 6 months cohort. We did two cohorts simultaneously. One was for entrepreneurs from both UK and India. The second cohort was more focused towards Go London, looking into the investment ecosystem and talking to investors. So that was the second cohort. During that time, I also came to an existing project in Defense India, and that basically, helped me to set up a defense tech accelerator, India's first defense tech accelerator, with two of the retired colonels from Indian Armed Forces with almost 25 years experience each. And I bring in the investment technology, they bring in the industry expertise, the challenges that Defense India is facing, and how to basically bring solutions.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I guess your experience in this space has been quite so much. And I guess, did you like, can you highlight a little bit more about the Nebula accelerator as well? That's something that is currently going on, right?
That's right. So, as part of the UK company Brand India Global Limited, we expanded to India, and the brand is known as Nebula Accelerator and Alternative Investment Fund or AIF. So, in Nebula Accelerator, we pretty much facilitate innovators, investors, policymakers, as well as armed forces veterans. So, as you know, in defense, the challenges are very different because particularly if you see armed forces, the officers, or even the army victims, the challenges they faced on ground has a very different perspective when
Right.
any civilian or anybody from outside comes to defense and tries to innovate, because they do not have necessarily the knowledge, the technical know-how, the challenges that actually a military person faces on ground, right? So that is where we bring in veterans who have already served 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, based on how much engagement they had with Indian Armed Forces, and then try to create a lot of think tank rooms where they actually state the problem statements that is faced by Indian Armed Forces, be it land, air, sea, space, cybersecurity, national challenges across the border. So those are the challenges. And then we bring in technocrats from different colleges, universities, even entrepreneurs who have interest in DefTech and defense. Then try to bring solutions out of that through hackathons, through different design sprints, as well as significant market opportunities where their products can be procured by Indian Armed Forces. Um, and now we have taken one step further. India started exporting products to almost 108 countries right now across the world. So that's like, almost you can say 14 to 15x growth of revenue, simultaneously exporting of products. It's almost like 164 indigenous technologies has gone outside India. And if I will put a figure, that is like 1,800 six export items are now getting exported from India, from guns to shoes to a lot of military uniforms right now, including software as well, like blockchain land records, in deep tech, healthcare products getting exported. There are also AI, artificial intelligence solutions that is getting exported. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's super fascinating. Actually, why don't we take like two steps back?
Sure.
Why don't we break down what is defense tech? Like you were just mentioning. So defense tech is not just like, it's not just one word. There are so many sectors that can be associated to it. Like you just mentioned that there is blockchain, there is AI, there is fashion technology, like there is a UK-based company called Quinitech. There is one that, you were also associated with, which is Worthy, who are designing clothes that probably soldiers or military men women can wear. So can you break it down for us? So somebody who's like a newbie like me, who does not understand defense tech as much, how would you explain to them what defense tech is?
Okay, so in a layman language, whatever challenges you face in defense, and if you try to bring solutions by the use of technology, then we call it as a defense gateway to tech, right? And it could be, there are a few challenges, whether, say, for example, communication and collaboration, right? There are three different forces, your Indian Army who works on land, you have naval who works in sea, and then you have air force who works in air. So there is a collaboration always needed when you face any image or any intervention happens in the country, any disruption happens. So there is need to be a communication through artificial intelligence, through various communication devices, as well as through technology, right across the borders, right from the headquarter, which I'm talking about, the Ministry of Defense. Then you have defense production, procurement, supply chain side, and people who are on ground with boots, right? Because they are the one who are facing the enemies day in, day out. So that is one area. The tech flows. Second is the carrier administration, and as you know, India is one of the fourth largest armed forces base in the world. So they're almost like 27 lakhs. We have forces. So getting the recruitment is one of the challenging job. Coming from various diversified background India has. So we have like CDS, we have Air Force Academy, we have Naval Academy, and then bring it together and get the recruitment done through the Ministry of Defense. So that's one of the area. Next is your training and as well as looking at some of the education programs, so be it leadership program, be it very specific tech solutions that is required within our forces. So that's been managed by them. Um, and you will be surprised, India has almost like 75 years, of independence, but a lot of issues or challenges, I would say, still there. Say, for example, very small example, you could say file sharing, right? And we all know the email is the disruption, right? So we don't go anywhere, we just share everything, right?
Right.
Anything and everything through the emails,
Right.
through its attachments and stuff. But that's not something adopted by Indian Armed Forces yet. It's a very it's surprising. It's you see, because most of the companies and their data centers are overseas, and because there's a lot of confidentiality, strategic security mission and all those things. So that's not something allowed. Even when I recently got involved with international programs, bringing almost 50 countries delegates and having a conference, physically I have to travel almost three, forces offices by in person to collect the data, and that is in manual format. And then obviously within ourselves we did the little bit customization part, bring the tech so that the official emails, calendar, task allocation, contacts can be created. And it looks funny from outside, but this is what the challenges are. And obviously, there's a lot of international speakers, delegates, participants come in. So, they logistically stay in different places. So you have to create that libraries, services that is required, be it logistic, food, and all these things. So that's something we also did by involving the tech. So we did actually Defense Act, and that is how the Defense Tech Initiative started. And we have been doing it to the next level right now, creating a defense panel, then bringing in the ex-servants or ex-servicemen together so that this can be go to the next level.
Right. So that's quite interesting. I mean, so there is still a lot of need for technology to come in and streamline these processes. Also, because the way you mentioned them, they might still be prone to a lot of cyber attacks, or if it's still manual, like lags, because, time lags and something like that, if it's still going on like the way you mentioned, or, some kind of information, critical, crucial information that gets misplaced. So I guess all of these aspects, when it comes to defense, it kind of gets very, very crucial because you don't want any information to go into the wrong hands. So
Right.
that all also needs to be gauged. But again, like, how does this sort of sector work? Does it work from the government making the policies that, this is our aim for, say, next couple of years? That this is the processes that we want to streamline, and then the startup sort of start building up on that? Or is it the other way around, that, I as a startup founder have built this X technology, which can potentially help the army in any way, or the naval services in any way, and then I approach the government or the policymakers that, why don't you use this instead of what you're using today? So how does that work? Like, who goes first?
So this is what the exact scenario was happening 3 years back when there was no Defense India Challenge system was developed. Obviously, Defense India Challenge came from the Startup India initiative. Startup India initiative started in 2016, reaching out to various capacity building, looking at incubation centers and accelerators.
Right.
So yes, there was homegrown solutions were built in defense, but as you know, the government and bureaucratic process, it's very difficult to reach out the right person who is taking decision, who can actually, procure your products or services. So, and the second thing, defense has a big, huge challenges on ground. So what we did is we started the Defense India challenge. So government of India opens up around 150 challenges from
Mhm.
different armed forces. We had nodal officers, very much officers who are being involved in those challenges or facing them. So they get the problem statement. And
Mhm.
then after we reached out various incubation centers, asked if they have any defense enthusiasts or entrepreneurs who would like to build products
Mhm.
in defense. So that is how it's a very much organic growth happened.
Mhm.
And then we did hackathons, then very much different startups came. They try to get these problem statements, understand them, then build the solutions. Initially, it was very much limited to the IITs, the premier institutions in India. But
Mhm.
now it has gone to tier two, tier three cities, and a lot of state level universities. Colleges are now involved. So we have around 28 incubation centers in India. The more than 15,000 challenges has been already been the solutions have been created.
Mhm.
Almost 470 plus defense focused startups are recognized and got funding. So it's a lot of things have already happened in between.
That's quite interesting. So how does this, okay, so this was that incubation centers and bit, but how do you decide between which founder to go ahead with? Like, suppose there is a X certain problem, there are five startups or startup founders from various backgrounds. Somebody's coming from a tier one city, somebody's coming from a small tier two city in India. How do you decide whether we should go ahead with this particular startup or this technology that they're providing? Also factoring the bit that you have to keep your data secure. This has to be a long-term solution. This cannot be something that you try out with and then uh, you know when it is probably needed, it fails or it does not work out. Like, how many tests does a particular technology go around with till it is finally deployed to a probably a section of the military that uses it in real time?
Right. So to explain this properly, there are like four pillars of defense, which we combine together and create a hub.
Mhm.
So one is access to information, right? As you said, a lot of challenges that problem statements even we have do
Mhm.
not really get explained in a public platform. So something like
Mhm.
IDEX or RDP, only a small problem statement has been given because it's accessible by anybody and everybody in the world. So you don't want to, express it or say it in the public. That can be misutilized, or maybe that can be also taken by the enemy country or say, for example, other countries. So there
Mhm.
is a confidentiality part of it.
Mhm.
So one is information which is curated for startups, given them on an individual basis. So
Mhm.
this 150 challenges I'm talking about, it has gone to 550 challenges and
Mhm.
more, which is very much explained in the IDEX website itself. But it's a very small problem statements they have given. So there is an extended version to it. That information is accessible by the startups.
Mhm.
Second is, looking at the skills development side, whether these startups have the, right kind of skill sets to create solutions, right?
Mhm.
Some of them are from engineering tech background, so they understand, the problem statement. They can create technologies which can bring solutions,
Mhm.
like anything related to Wi-Fi communication or
Mhm.
surveillance,
Mhm.
drones, levies. That's the area. But if you
Mhm.
look at some of the areas, right, where we don't have internet, like say for example, Jammu and Kashmir, right? If you go towards the hilly areas, towards the remote hilly areas, you don't have the internet there. So how do you basically provide these kind of solutions there? If you
Right.
talk about some of the northeast states like Guwahati or Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, which is complete the end of India's borders,
Right.
and something if you look at the south side as well, like Pondicherry, Kerala,
Mhm.
if you look at Tamil Nadu, so there is challenges. If you look at northwest like Gujarat, I'm talking about Rajasthan, complete
Mhm.
end of the border and huge range of places. There is no communication there as well. So how
Mhm.
do you basically provide the solution there? So the skill sets has to be very diversified here, and we take the help of mostly veterans here because they are the one who has been already deployed in these sites or in this destination. Should they know exact what are the challenges are,
Mhm.
including climatic challenges, environment
Mhm.
challenges, real combat world challenges. So they have seen. Third thing is bringing the mentoring process together because these guys
Mhm.
have already the challenges faced and they know should they actually transfer that knowledge to the next generation. So
Mhm.
there is a one-to-one mentoring, some group mentoring sessions we do so
Mhm.
that the problem statements will explain to the founding team and the extended team. Then after they build the product and showcase the product in a timely manner, either
Mhm.
on in ordnance factories they go and test that product. So if it is related to hardware like drones or UAVs and stuff, so
Mhm.
they do that. Or else if it's related to software, so obviously they come to various incubation centers and showcase their product. So that is how the national level selection takes place. If there
Mhm.
is something related to international level, like we have Index X, like India US collaboration.
Mhm.
So there's 10 startups from India who are working with the US right now to provide solutions to US Navy.
Mhm.
So there's also solutions between India and Israel right now.
Mhm.
Some of the Indian startups have gone and working with the United Nations right now, be it in Australia and even Russia for the sake of it. So that there are a lot of challenges which actually showcase to international partners. And
Mhm.
obviously, that is a collaboration happens in a strategic level between the government to government, and then it boils down to the startups and the institutions get involved in that particular process.
Oh, that's nice. And but like, is our government also supporting side of probably subsidies or something like because India has this big thing called Make in India movement where you want to build out technologies and solutions in house and not be dependent on anybody else. And also like you mentioned, like areas like Nagaland and all of that which do not have access to network or basic Wi-Fi and all of that uh, is like if a startup probably requires like I'm just hypothesizing like I'm not too sure but if you require satellite rights because where you don't have regular Wi-Fi or regular calling networks and all of that I am assuming that you require satellite calls and everything to be done. So in that case, does the government also support you with some kind of credit, some kind of subsidies, some kind of technology that they have access to, and they just for the trial period once a particular startup has moved up that selection process, is the government also supporting startups with these kind of technologies or subsidies solutions?
Yes, the government supports in various aspects. Yes, they provide subsidies and the grants as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial level of building a proof of concept or minimum viable product, it can build on the government grants. Once they get selected, obviously, there's one. The second part is also a matching fund. So government through the IDEX program invests around 1.5 CR Indian rupees to 10 CR Indian rupees so
Mm-hmm.
that the product prototype can be built. There is also an advanced defense technology program recently launched by Honorable Raksha Mantri or the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh ji. It is called Aditi, and where they extend this grants to up to 25 crores so that
Mm-hmm.
the startups can actually take that money, build that team, build the technology that is required. So basically get access to this. We have two defense industrial corridors. One is at Uttar Pradesh. The second one is in Tamil Nadu. So there is another four DICs in the process of getting announced and declared as well. So that would be almost like six. I think 2024-25 financial year, and it will increase more right now because the government is very keen to look at Atmanirbhar defense, which is very much like self-reliant defense. So they want 100% indigenous. Any products the government wants to procure right now to the armed forces has to be made in India. So even if it's an overseas company wants to sell products in India, they have to come to India. They have to create their manufacturing unit here and basically get the Indian people, Indian employee or even Indian expertise on board and then build the products here. So that gives a lot of subsidies for companies to get attracted to Indian destinations. And the third part is the investment because without funds you cannot do anything. So what the government has done is created a technology development fund. So the TDF, which is almost like $30.8 million dollars fund that is being sanctioned by the government of India for indigenous technologies. So anybody is building products. There's also one more initiative recently started in 2024, which is called as United Investors Hub. So that is very much like around nine VC funds joined together and created a corpus fund of around 200 crores to invest in these kind of startups, who have technologies already proven or it's been selected and there is an order. So these investors can invest in those startups as matching fund or even more than that. So these are the solutions, or I would say support system has been created by the government of India in for supporting Indian startups as well as overseas startups working with India.
Wow, that's amazing actually. That these are a lot of avenues that like, how you spoke about being self-reliant. But what is your take on, probably exporting this technology outside? Like, earlier you also mentioned that, if we have some sort of association with India and US where like, they also want to use this technology and everything. But like there are actually two different questions on this aspect is that one, that today India has a lot of allies. India is, like, at least as of today, India is ally with Israel, Russia, Ukraine, US, like most of the countries. But in like, again, on a bad day, when India is not doing great with these countries, and if there is a situation of war, I hope that never happens. But if there is a situation of war, you always want to be better off than somebody else. Then is India also looking at exporting this technology? Because, if I have a technology, I am like a superpower. At least that's what, people like to believe. But if I export it, now that you also have that expertise and that technology, you are at par with me. So how open are we to exporting these startups or technologies outside of India and leveraging that? And are there any other policies that restrict startups to go into a certain country and set up subsidiaries there, offices over there, or to export this technology in any way? Because again, it is all about information. uh, like any information that is prone to being disseminated in any different way. Say I was a startup that's set up in India and I'm providing the services to the Indian Army, and I have a subsidiary that is doing the same sort of business and is providing the same sort of technology to the US Army as well. And in any way, because if I know that there'll be good barriers and firewalls between these two companies, but if in any way any information has been transmitted between these two companies because it's owned by one parent head, uh, it, it could create a lot of chaos on a bad day, like I mentioned. So, like, what is your take on that?
Absolutely. See, that's where the challenges come in because your allies sometimes are your enemies when it's bilateral, or mainly we call it in geopolitics of the future of war or
Yeah.
defense war that coming in. So that is where India was always, dependent on other countries, be it for our missiles. Maybe you can give us the jets, right, fighter jets, but what about the technology behind it, right? And if there is a bad day comes in, and which we have happened, we had already that experiences, be it in different wars like Kargil war, or if you say Uri war happened, and even Avinav got caught. So those kind of incidents which actually taught us how to be self-reliant and building homegrown technology for our defense forces. So that is one part. Second part, as you said, there are data governance is there. So even if you are a US company and you are in India, you are serving both countries, but if US says no, you cannot provide this to India, it's a no. So you can. At the same time, Indian government says, okay, you can't share this information with any of these allied countries. So basically, we can't. But there are certain extent to that a joint exercises happen. And mostly what I see is India becoming the tech leadership in this thing. Particularly, I'm talking about AI, use of it. Some of the softwares that's getting built in India right now used for international markets, be it in Tejas, or we talk about the SIPs built in packets of India, like Goa, SIP packets and all. So those are the areas where even the IP remains with US, but the application part of it comes to India. So that means you give us a structure and the framework, then we build on top of that. So tomorrow, if that is anything happens, but the solutions that's been created stays with the country. The same thing happens vice versa as well. What is happening in Israel right now, right? A lot of Indian companies who are providing drone services, even the technology that is needed for Israel armed forces right now with the war that is happening. So obviously, the technology that is built in India are indigenous, and when it goes to Israel, there is a part of it getting used, but then the framework built on top of that, that is layer one blockchain technology, which is a permissionless blockchain. So that can be used for Israel only, and it has no links with India. Yeah.
So that's good that at least we can, keep some sort of critical information that is exclusive to India, and then we give out one part for application basis or usage basis. But there was an interesting bit. A lot of people here don't know that, you're also a blockchain expert, and you just mentioned something about blockchain. Why don't, how are these tech startups today or defense tech startups today using blockchain as a technology? Has it added some extraordinary value to these startups, or again, your opinion on that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of areas or sector I would say that blockchain technology has been used in Indian armed forces as well. India is now trying to export this technologies to overseas. One is obviously energy and the power, right? There's a lot of distribution, storage, the recovery of energy, all these things are required. So that is where India is using blockchain technology, because as you know, the energy is not getting produced by one state, it's produced by different states. So how this energy can be stored in India as well as exported outside, so that's through the blockchain technology is getting up. The second is data and information. I mean, most of the Indian data centers capable of handling Indian data, but I mean, the source is already outside, be it Google, Microsoft, IBM, even if you say like L&T and companies who are already building their tech here, like other than Tata, TCS, I think a lot of Mahindra, a lot of other companies come outside and they build their base here. So one is you're creating data centers, which is getting indigenous. So that means any data that is produced in India or stored in India cannot be shared outside without Indian government's consent or Indian citizens' consent. So that gives a lot of internet information sovereignty to India as well. The next important thing is what blockchain is using a lot is sensor technology, and you have a lot of information in space tech right now, and everybody is working in a very different world altogether. So to use the satellite images, information that's been there, and also for the surveillance reasons as well. So obviously, if you have more satellites in the space of your own, then you have more information. Now there is a satellite, or I would say space association being created, ISPA, which is working together, and we have Indian Space Congress here as well, which represents basically Indian space technology for that. Again, going back to a sector like healthcare and performance on ground. So that is where Indian Armed Forces using blockchain technology, be it from the logistics side or equipments, the original where the parts are coming, how that is getting assembled, the end-to-end supply chain side. So the person who is using this equipment or technology, they need to know the details as well. The complete information has to be transparent. So that is where we use permission blockchain to basically get it protected, get it secured, but at the same time, somebody who is at the user end of things, they can also get the use of it. The last not but least, but where we're looking for infrastructure, and India is going like anything with the double-digit numbers right now. So industrial corridors, if you see, where we have to raise funds mostly from outside, be it UK, France, Germany, US, Israel, Russia, other countries. So they need transparency in terms of real estate infrastructure or even digital infrastructure per se. So what India is building is land records of its own. So these two DICs, that is, I'm talking about the Uttar Pradesh one and Telangana one. So I was involved at the initial stage of at the strategy making of land records, so that each and every square feet is measured, it's properly done the smart contract, signed a smart contract, and then shown it to the investors for the FDI and FII coming to the country, so that they don't have to worry the future of their investments. It's not in the dark; it's all transparent and there for the public use. So that's what's been done in defense, blockchain use of it. There is one more area where we have started working on is obviously the space technology where blockchain can be used, and space carbon credits can be also created in terms of tokenization. The future of money that we call it, like circular economy, can be connected to that. The next is also sustainability, and a lot of because of the carbon credits and stuff, and a lot of the oil and gas energy is getting used. So how India can achieve the zero carbon credits, because being a huge country, right? So a lot of things are manual. So how do you basically do that? So that is where we're trying to use blockchain to create reports, even get it tracked and everything, and then after giving back to the community. So a lot of CSR activities are based on the Sustainable Development Program, the SDG program of United Nations, being adopted here by UNDA.
Wow, that is super insightful. I have multiple questions that are going in my head, but I'll ask them one by one. Okay, that was great. But okay, so the first bit is you also spoke a lot about the investment bit of it, like where people can invest into this. And as this is an investor-led series, if I was a foreign investor, say like I'm sitting in the UK at the moment, and say I was a British citizen, are there any restrictions that are there when it comes to investment in defense tech startups in India? Are there any things that I should be aware of? You already mentioned that, it's pretty transparent and everything, but do startups also have a restriction that they can raise only a X amount through FDI, and the remaining has to, to maintain that sort of control that you're speaking about by Indians or Indian startup founders, or probably I don't know how involved the government gets in when a startup has crossed a certain stage. So do you think that as an international investor, I can get access to these startups and leverage out of them? Also, as an investor, what are my expectations? Is it because basically when I'm investing, it's more about the money. Are all of these startups focused only core towards being a superpower and everything, or are they revenue making, and what kind of revenues or exits are these startups giving? So I know that I've diverted into two different questions, but again, purely from an investor perspective, how do I set my expectations, and how can I get access to these startups by investing in them?
Yeah, so to answer the questions, we need to understand also this, like how much India is investing of its own, right? And
Right.
as you know, India is on the top 5 country right now in the world to when it comes to defense expenditure. And India has invested almost 3.3% of the GDP share right now in defense budget, which is almost like 7.272% higher than the last budget, 2023-24 budget. And if you look at the global investment that is coming right now to India is almost like 1.4 billion US dollars, and it is getting invested mostly, obviously Delhi, NCR, Maharashtra. Then you have Tamil Nadu, you have Kerala, who are like top 5 states or cities, I would say, or domestic cities was getting invested. But at the same time, India is also parking its own money, right? And when I'm saying parking its own money, is very much if you look at the defense investment snapshot. So a lot of investors right now investing in Indian startups, whereas they were actually investing outside, right? So that gives confidence to overseas investors to investing in India as well, because now there's, there was an inflow of money and there was a lot of outflow of money happening earlier. Because a lot of Indian investors were investing in real estate in Dubai, even in tech in UK, investing in consumer goods, D2C brands in US, because they were getting better profits, more return on investment, what they used to do it in India. But now, as the market size has opened up and there is a bigger players coming in from overseas investing in India, so that gives an opportunity for Indian investors to invest in Indian startups as well. So that is how the whole, the unicorn game has changed. Last if you see the 5 years record, almost 2016-17, when I actually planned to come back to India, I think we had only 17 or 18 unicorns at that time, right? And now we have 127 unicorns. So that increased a lot. Secondly, when I think I even tried to do research and planning to come back to India. It was only 7,000 startups were registered in Startup India portal. And when I actually decided in 2018 to take that risk to come back, I think there was less than 13,000 or something startups. But now if you look at, there's 1,15,000 startups getting already got registered in startups. So the numbers are increasing huge. Obviously, there is a failure side of it because every startup is not going to be successful. They will have to exit somewhere. They have to shut down their businesses because of the competition and a lot of things going on. But I think at the same time, there's a lot of merger and acquisition are happening. There is a lot of companies, unicorns are buying out startups at an early stage because they are more oriented towards the tech and what the solution, very specific problem statements that startups are solving. So that gives them a bandwidth for higher valuation outside India. So that is something internally happening. I think that will go a long way as far as the defense and space tech is concerned, because defense is it's a huge investment portfolio, right? You cannot have 5 lakh rupees and start a defense startups. You need huge money portfolio. So, and it requires a lot of hardware support as well, which India has adopted the strategy of indigenous or Atmanirbhar defense. I think that will allow Indian defense startups to go a long way.
That's actually fantastic. Like, the numbers that you just mentioned, it's grown exponentially. From a couple of startups or a couple of unicorns to today, India supporting so many startups that are in this space. And definitely, like you said, that this is not a short-term game, it's a long-term game. You need money. And this is a sector that's always going to be there. On good days, also it's a requirement for your national security, and on bad days it's much more of a requirement, so that you can maintain your security and the country's well-being. So that's fantastic. But also, can you also make some comparisons between, like, how the Indian tech startup, defense tech startups are doing, and versus, like, what other other countries are doing, like say the UK. If you had to compare these two countries with their defense tech industry or economy or ecosystem of the startups, or maybe US, who is the superpower today when it comes to these kind of startups, and where is India on the map?
Yeah, so if we look at from the industry point of view, then definitely the overseas startups have a better edge
Mhm.
because they have the exposure, they have also access to the information and the opportunity to build it as well, right? With the open
Mhm.
source technology and all. So that is why they have better edge. But when it comes to looking at, in terms of manufacturing side,
Mhm.
I think Indian startups has more power, more more support system than the
Mhm.
overseas startups. I mean, if you talk about like Chandrayaan 3, right? All of us heard the story. It's made less than a movie of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So that is where India actually, takes next stage, or I will take the edge for in comparison to others. And the second thing is, even if you see from the geopolitical side, if you
Mhm.
are a startup making in UK, getting an entry to European countries is very good because of obviously Brexit and other things happening.
Right.
Right. Now, if you are an Indian startup, a lot of countries actually welcome you in open
Mhm.
hand because they really think that Indians can build technology faster, quicker, and cheaper. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you look at even the defense, strategy and defense
Mhm.
history of India has never gone out and attacked anyone, right? We are the opposite side, or we are in the river side. I mean,
Right.
India has always been attacked, never attacked. So that
Mhm.
history or that legacy is always there with India. So
Mhm.
anybody we are talking, be it Australia, Ukraine, or Russia, at the same time, where there is a war going on between two countries, and we're pretty, you know, easily, pretty effortlessly making the relationship with both countries and selling our products.
Mhm.
So, and I was talking to, in fact, when I met the Honorable Prime Minister of Greece, in G20, and he was so keen to collaborate with the Defense India. He
Mhm.
actually, recruited few of his embassy guy in India right now to basically look at. I mean,
Mhm.
within 2 3 months, we have seen the transformation happen in these countries coming to India, seeing what are the opportunity, getting their team here, and actually start executing the projects in India. So I think that gives a lot of confidence to Indian startups.
Fantastic. But as an investor, what are the things that I should stay away from? Like, when I'm going through these defense tech startups, how do, there must be risks associated to them. Of course, I'm not talking about the traditional things that, like, of course, a startup journey is very difficult. There are times that might fail. But what are the things as an investor perspective that I should stay away from or should be aware of? And also how much government control is there on startup. So say, like, like how if there is an investment in a traditional startup, I know that there can be risks that are associated with the management, that if the founder has some ill intent, then this might go the wrong way. But here there are two parties. Okay, there is the management, also there is the government who has the ultimate control on the future of my investment in the startup. What are the things that I should be aware of before I step in?
I think the due diligence is very, very important. So if you
Mhm.
are an overseas investor not having a base in India, it would be
Mhm.
always great to have a collaboration at domestic market who can represent you or who can become a spokesperson for you, because that
Right.
is one thing very, very important.
Mhm.
Second thing is, I see a lot of startups fail or they do not work out with foreign investors is because of the cultural differences, right? Understanding each other. So you need to give that much of time and space to each other to
Mhm.
understand. I understand when I came, even the first 2 years, we didn't make so much money. And it was a lot of people, even on my own, I also had a doubt at that time. I'm already making good money outside. Why should I spend my time? Because I'm not getting return. And everywhere there is some level of red tape is there. It's more about know who, know how, right? And it happens very quickly in UK because we've been acquainted or we have been very known to the British culture and everything that is works with us. But at the same time, when you come back to India, there's an indifference, particularly you have been there almost 10, 15 years. So people actually see you in very different. I'm not saying that you are a bad boy or you are, a spy or something, but at least people have that kind of, who are you referred by? So if you're coming from the top and they have that trust level, that immediately doors get open. But if you don't have that kind of background facility, then it takes a lot of time. So I think that moment investors need to understand those things and ready to take those risks as well. Third is, hey, it's very diverse. Every 100 meters you go in India, the culture changes, the market changes, the language changes, everything, from food to, whatever you wear, everything changes. So, somebody has to come in that open mind from outside to understand India, Indian culture, Indian way of doing business, and then take decisions so that mentally they are ready. Okay, if it's not working, maybe first 2 years or 3 years, but that probably 5 years or 7 years, huge exit can be expected as well because of the market we have right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. India is, I mean, known for its diversity across the globe. So anybody that
Yeah.
wants to step in this space has to be adaptable and flexible to understand that how diverse it is, how things work here and everything. And like you just mentioned that, somebody who's going to be sitting outside and probably putting in their money, getting access and trying to understand this, it's better that, you go through somebody handhold and, lay off your expectations or due diligence to somebody who's more local, understands the space better. And do you also help startups like with going out of India, say they want to set up an office, or like we were speaking about exporting technology outside India and scale? Do you also help them with that exposure and scale? Because I know that Nebula already has access to veterans and everything in India, that sort of mentorship and the background you are supporting them with. But yeah, like, do you also support them with scaling outside India?
Yes, so we have done vice versa earlier. Any outside companies were coming to India set up, so we have done that. So now, last 2 years, we have been actually helping Indian entrepreneurs or Indian startups go ever. So we've done already 3 cohorts, particularly Indian startups with the UAE government. Then I took one delegation to the BRICS delegation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa to overseas. So that's one. Then we did a UK trade and investment relationship with the UK government as well. So there are three done. We are looking into to do seven during the 2024-25 cohort. So we've been already in talks with Abu Dhabi, Australia, New Zealand is looking into. Israel we have started partially, but we're looking for like a cohort, where 15, 20 startups can go there and, understand the market work, start working together. We have started Greece as well. So looking more interaction with them. Then Singapore is the market where the fintech, innovation is happening. So that's something we're looking at. So yeah, APAC, South Asian market is already open. So that's something we're working, but at the same time, we're looking at the Middle East as well as the European market, like France, Germany, because we considered them earlier as a UK allied partners as part of the G20 or G7, but right now because of the Brexit, there's a lot of geopolitical division, so we consider them different markets as well.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much for your precious time and so many insights. I guess now I can say that I've understood defense tech quite much, a lot because of you. But thank you, Pravash. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Joel, for the opportunity, and it was great talking to you. Hope we could bring some collaboration between India and UK and take it to the next level.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.